The refrain so far today, Wendy, has been not so super. Is this a coronation? Is there a sense of inevitability tonight?
Yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of drama tonight. It'll just be Trump's march across the country from Vermont to Alaska. That is the spread of states voting tonight. And you're absolutely right that he won't clinch the nomination. But for Nikki Haley, the nomination will, if indeed Trump wins most, if not all, of these states. There's some question about Vermont or Virginia, maybe a little bit unlikely. If he marches through all these states, then there's no way she can make up the math in time. So he will officially clinch it, as you said, later this month. But we will be surprised if we don't hear something definitive from Haley tomorrow.
Well, of course, what Nikki Haley has been saying is if you look at all the contests thus far, which aside from D.C., she hasn't outright won any of them, but she has been putting up numbers north of 40% in New Hampshire, almost 40% in North Carolina. And she keeps saying that shows a decent chunk of the Republican electorate does not want Donald Trump. How much will those kind of figures really matter when we're looking at the numbers coming in this evening?
Well, that will matter to show that, because she's absolutely right. That is a gauge of voters who are not interested in Donald Trump having a second term. So Republican voters, I should say. So the question is, where do they go in the general election? Do they hold their nose and vote for Trump because he's the Republican? Do they cross over and vote for Joe Biden? I don't know. Maybe some will. But that's really the crux. She is right. There is a large chunk of the Republican electorate that doesn't want Donald Trump. But in the general election, who knows where they're going to go.
Josh Wingrove, there are Democratic contests tonight as well, with a guy named Joe Biden on the ballot. I guess we'll call it a nominating contest, maybe. Minnesota keeps coming up after what we saw in Michigan with the uncommitted movement, a protest movement by many progressives specific to the president's policy in Israel and Gaza. We're looking tonight at Minneapolis. Is this a media thing? We're looking for something to talk about, or is this a real problem for Joe Biden?
No, people are looking at that as well as North Carolina for that essentially protest vote. States have different terms for it, uncommitted, what have you. We're watching it because in Minnesota you've got a large Muslim American and Arab American community. But what we saw in Michigan is it spread to other communities, young people in particular, and of course the risk for Biden, who generally has a wider but flimsier voter base than Trump, who has a narrower but more ironclad voter base. He needs these people to show up. And so, it kind of was somewhere between underwhelming and overwhelming, the Michigan result. It was just enough for everyone's hot take to be validated, right? So, so we'll see if we have a similar result today. The Biden people have been paying attention to this. I don't think their hair has been lit on fire. I will be watching, though, if those numbers are consistently higher, that's a problem. But just to go back to the Nikki Haley conversation, one thing that we've noticed is she is outperforming her polls. When we talk about her results, fairly consistently, there has been a polling error showing overstating Donald Trump's support. He's winning, and he's winning by large margins, but by smaller margins than expected. That, I think, is something to watch. If that keeps happening, that A, says something about the Republican primary that Wendy has already gone through, but B, I think, raises questions about, we yet again, stop me if you've heard this before, is the polling right? Do we know what's going on? Right now, one thing that suggests the polling is right is it's all kind of marching in the same direction. That is, Joe Biden is losing. The question out of tonight is really, can Joe Biden turn it around, and will Donald Trump's clinching of this sort of put him more front of mind to those independent voters, those voters with normal lives that aren't really paying attention to all this, in a way that kind of changes those numbers? Because right now, it would be very difficult to read this and not see Donald Trump as the front runner.
Wow.
And of course, in addition to the actual presidential headlines of this evening, there's plenty of other races down ballot to pay attention to in Texas and California. One down ballot race that isn't actually in question tonight, but is in the news tonight, as Joe mentioned, is Arizona. Because the independent senator from Arizona, who has left us guessing for some time as to whether or not she was seeking re-election, Kyrsten Sinema, said today that she is not. Take a listen.
I believe in my approach, but it's not what America wants right now. Because I choose civility, understanding, listening, working together to get stuff done, I will lead the Senate at the end of this year.
So it will be a two-way race, Wendy, in Arizona. Ruben Gallego on the Democratic side, Carrie Lake on the Republican side. Perhaps Sinema's announcement isn't all too surprising, but how much does this really put a spotlight on the balance of the Senate and the role Arizona could play in deciding that come November.
Well, it absolutely puts the spotlight on that. It also puts the spotlight on sort of the state of American politics, right? She's a centrist. She's in that sort of Joe Manchin camp. She was a Democrat. She became an independent. She caucused with the Democrats. I think I got that right.
Yes.
And she's very confusing to watch. And now the race is between a progressive Democrat on the left wing of the party and Kari Lake, who is a Trump acolyte from the get-go.
Still contesting the results of her
still
gubernatorial race.
Right. And probably still contesting the 2020 presidential election. So those are the people then who will be the nominees for the Senate seat. So either way, you're getting someone from the extremes of the party, where someone like Sinema, someone like Romney, someone like Manchin has no place.
You covered Trump land, Josh. Did Kari Lake just fall off the short list for vice president if she was on it because he needs her to win that Senate seat?
When she said she was running for the Senate seat, I think that's when most people concluded that she'd been given indication that she would not be the vice president. Otherwise, she might not have jumped in. I think this is good news for Ruben Gallego. You know, a lot of the polls have shown in a three-way race, he's losing votes, obviously, to Sinema, who, for all intents and purposes, was the at least lowercase d Democratic senator from the state. So I think, you know, this is going to be a narrower race. We've seen in past cycles that the Trumpy candidates that are put up in the Senate races have cost the Republicans seats. If Trump had not put his thumb on the scale as much in the Senate, Republicans could have, I don't know, 53 seats in the Senate right now. You know, it's a big difference. So the question is Arizona going to be that all over again? But this is a brutal map for Democrats. Most people do not think they will hold the Senate. They can afford to lose one. They might lose significantly more than one. Who knows, particularly if Joe Biden's numbers don't come up. But the betting odds seem to be that Democrats like their chances in the House. They're not so hot on their chances
Kailey,
in the Senate
Maryland on the
presidency.
table.
Who knows?
Yeah,
Gets even more difficult.
Larry Hogan, absolutely. You make the point about Joe Biden's numbers not being fantastic in many different metrics. On the economy, on the border, he's getting poor marks. But also increasingly on the progressive side, we're seeing a lot of angst around his stance when it comes to Israel, given what we're seeing happen in Gaza, which raises the ceasefire question. That's something the administration is actively working on. It would be a temporary ceasefire, and Biden was asked a question about this by a reporter today. Here was his response.
It's in the hands of Hamas right now. The Israelis have been cooperating. There's an offer out there that's rational. We don't know what. We'll know in a couple days if it's going to happen. But we need the ceasefire.
So, Josh, the president says he doesn't know what's going to happen. Is that a sign that the U.S., frankly, just doesn't have much leverage or sway in these conversations with Israel?
It sure looks like things are stalled, but they're saying at least that Israel, it depends on who you ask. They're saying Israel's on board with this deal that they've been talking about since Saturday. And they had Kamala Harris come out on Sunday with kind of a have cake, eat two statement where she called for a ceasefire and then said it's up to Hamas. That's exactly what's on the table, which are not really the same thing. But so what we're dealing with right now is the U.S. is pressuring Hamas to take this deal. The terms as they've described it, the Americans have described it, is that if Hamas releases vulnerable hostages, women, ill, injured, elderly, then this deal is a 6-week ceasefire that could potentially lead to a longer term with other types of conditions. There's just been no indication yet that that'll happen. And John Kirby in the briefing today candidly kind of really was not setting expectations particularly high for a breakthrough. They say they're hopeful and maybe something will get done before this sort of targeted Ramadan beginning, but it sure seems like things are sliding in the wrong direction. We're getting dueling narratives. Yeah. But essentially the U.S. has been trying to ramp up pressure on Hamas, sort of, say the word ceasefire, at least aloud, regardless of what words are on either side of it, to try to speak to their progressive base. And that's what we're seeing in Michigan and Minnesota and all these places. They're trying to respond to Democrats saying that they want more pressure, more, anger from the vice president and the president.